dear Mr. Chairman and panelists, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure for me today to be with you. I would like to thank Dr. Hilal Safar and Dr. Alfred for inviting me to be with you today. I would like also to thank my mentor, Dr. Safar, for this nice introduction. Today, in the next 15 minutes, I will try to take you back with me in a journey which takes back to 11 years ago. This story had been born in very nice country in UK. Just all the story is about the implementation of program. It's a matter of problem of the primary pertinence core intervention. By primary PCI, we mean that when any patient has got acid elevation myocardial infarction, you should take the patient directly to the cath lab and open the occluded blood vessel in a very short time. So the most important message in the primary PCI to do the procedure in a very short time, because still we do believe that minute mean muscle. At 2008, when the population of Iraq was about 29 million, no service for primary PCI available for anybody of these people. This is the idea for primary PCI. Just all the data in the last 15 years or 2 decades have proven that primary PCI is superior to the medical treatment with thrombolytic therapy in the chair model mortality and chair model partition and even intercambiability. The most important thing in the primary PCI is a matter of combination of different models. It's a combination, the networking. It's not about just doing a procedure. Daily we are doing more than 30 procedures in elective cases. But the most important thing, the golden rule in the primary PCI, is to do it in the time, very short time. Just imagine that when you have got a patient, you should, the first thing that you educate the patient that when you have got chest pain, you should notify the EMS within the every 5 minutes. So the patient should notify the EMS in the 5 minutes. After that, there is a role for transmission of the patient. Transport is very important because you should reach the patient to the hospital within 8 to 12 minutes. And in the change ago when I was in London, it was the EMS was only 12 minutes. I think now have been reduced to 8 minutes. So imagine how this system in this country is working. In this very crowded city, you get the patient to the cath lab in only 8 minutes. And after that, when you reach the patient at the hospital, you should open the vessel in the first 30 minutes. So imagine that all this process shouldn't take more than 60 minutes, from the onset of the chest pain to opening of the vessel, because the crucial rule is minute mean muscle. More minutes having gone, more muscle will be damaged and more chance of getting heart failure in the future. So this is the concept of the primary PCI. Just having this slide having described by my mentor, Dr. Safar. Just in 2004, I finished my postgraduate study in internal medicine. At the time, my hope, my dream to become a cardiologist. But unfortunately, at that time, no type of the service was available in that part of the world that I am living. Just only we are given aspirin, dipyridamole, and nitrate to our patient, and the patient going to die in the early future or having heart failure, or he has got money, he's going to travel to the neighboring country. But unfortunately, no any service available. So I have got to think about for a long period of time that going to the UK or going to Europe it take at least 10, 15 years. That's why there's a chance. And at that time, the process of the Center for Cardiology is available in Baghdad. So that's why, as Dr. Hilal mentioned, I have started my career in Baghdad. It was very difficult for me because just it was few weeks, few months that the war have overcome. We have a lot of political kind of problems for a Kurdish doctor to go to Baghdad. It was very difficult because everything was messy at the time in Baghdad. Because financially, I was just starting. Socially, I was married newly, and my wife told me that she's going to leave me if I am going to Baghdad. And even the language, even I cannot have one sentence in Arabic language. I remember when I met, fortunately, Dr. Hilal, we talk in English because I cannot have even one sentence in Arabic language. So imagine all these problems, but instead of that, I could manage these 2 years, and during my stay in Baghdad, I have tried to establish a center for medicine in Syria. That's why when I finished my career in cardiology, I established the center. I remember the first PCI, first elective surgery or intervention done for a cousin of my dad, because at that time nobody had believed in us to do intervention for him in our city because the service was not available. That's why we have hardly with my dad to visit the patient home and bring him next day the cath lab and to open his blood vessel. So again, a chance came to me from Dr. Hilal when he described that. He asked me to join a program in Sheffield in the Northern General Hospital. The program was very nicely arranged because it consists of two parts. The first part was a two weeks training of how to become a leader, how to become a leader on a country, how to make a change. It was a theoretical thing done by Miss Nadia Gittin. And at that time, he taught us that to make any change or implement any program, you need 3 S's. The first is structure, skill set, and stakeholders. So these 3 S's kept in my mind. And what's more nice than this, that during the next 6 week, I spent in the Northern General Hospital. Fortunately, at that time, there is a French chief coming from Paris, learning these people how to implement the program for primary PCI, because since that time it wasn't well established even in Sheffield. So that's why combining these people that learning how to make a change, and meanwhile you are dealing with a case daily, so it made me an opportunity to start my project. At the end of the case, in the course, they asked me to have some presentation, and in the 28th August 2008, that's the flight of my presentation. At that time, my hope was to establish or implement the program in the 4 years. And the first year, we are going to spend with the referral education of the patient, because you know that at that time, 11 years ago, education was very difficult, because social media wasn't like this time, because just we tried to make through media, through radios, TVs, newspapers, something like that. It was difficult. Our referral system at that time, EMS, not available in our city at all. It was too bad system, and even call it and transport system. So we are trying to do the first thing after 1 year. But Sunday, at early morning at 7 a.m. So in my mind, going home in the plane all the time, I'm thinking about in the kind of course how to work on the 3 S's, the structure, skill staff, and the stakeholders. So when home, I tried hardly to overcome the problem, because in every step there was a lot of problem. The first problem that I faced is that how to implement the program or project of the primary PCI, because everywhere in this universe there is negative thinking people. So that's why the medical center was not too much good with that. So a lot of people say to me, still we are losing or we are lacking even vaccination, this primitive service. How we are going to do a program for primary PCI? So dealing with people is very difficult for me. The second one is structure. At that time, only we have got 1 cath lab. If doing primary PCI with cath lab is very difficult, because sometimes you are doing one case, it takes 2 hours from you, and you have got a patient with MRI, you should take the patient to cath lab. I will going to tell you something, it is unethical, but I think that we are all lucky that one day when we are doing the elective PCI, the mother or the mom of the Minister of Health has got an infection. So they obliged to wait for about 30 minutes just to finish the case. And at the time, he decided to bring another cath lab, which at that time it was $1.5 million. The staff, it is no longer enough. We haven't enough cardiologists at the time, so it was very difficult to persuade my colleague. I remember at that time we were 6 cardiologists, only me and one of my colleagues have done the procedure to be 24 hours. Stakeholders, Ministry of Health, it was very difficult to treat them. And the most important thing at that time was the Ministry of Interior, because I could success to persuade them to make some highways around the hospital, because you know that primary PCI is a matter of a process of networking. Transport is the most important thing, because we don't have got any patient chest pain or MRI. If we receive the patient every 12 hours, it doesn't mean anything. So as if we are not doing anything for the patient. And the most important thing is teamwork and leadership, which we are lacking in this part of the law world, as we have no system well organized. And in spite of that, we have got we face a lot of risk. a lot of risk, like fund facilities and traffic jam and a lot of problems. I remember that time dealing with the first year, I gave up several times, but in the next morning I'm doing the same concept I'm trying to implement the project. This is just one day at 7 a.m. They informed me that we have got an young man from southern part of Asia. He has got myocardial infarction and he has got recurrent attack of ventricular fibrillation. They gave him all medication and even thrombotic still is in VIA. That's why we have transferred the patient to the catheter. I got this photos thankfully from Dr. Hilal. It was in his archive. These have got total occlusion circumflex artery, and after putting a stent, the patient life was saved. And this was the first global case. It helped us to maintain in our ward. And this has been discussed by Dr. Hilal. So by December 2009, we have implemented the project partially. It was only available up to 12 p.m., up to 14. While other patients after that, we cannot provide the service. But fortunately, 1 year later, we could success, and the program was available 24 hourly over 7 days. And after 2 years of that, now I have got emergency PCI not only for STEMI people, also for those patients who have got ankle angina and an accelerated myocardial infarction. And this is the scheme of the OR. If we look just in 2005, when I was in Baghdad during my career, there is no any intervention doing. Just what came the last year that they came back only one PCI. That's my cousin, my dad's cousin. And nowadays we have reached more than 55,000 procedures. Daily we are doing more than 30 procedures in only 3 cath labs. Just one of the important things when you are doing implementing project, you should share these with your colleagues. At the time, my concern not only with other government, because I have tried hard with my colleague in Baghdad, in Erbil, in Najaf, in Basra, and in Hindahab to implement. Unfortunately, now all these governments, I think that about 80% of Iraqi population now, they are receiving this type of treatment with the primary PCI. So it's fortunately available in it's available in our part of Iraq. This ECG dates back to only 10 days ago. In my last call, this is a 48 years old man. He has got myocardial infarction with recurrent attack of ventricular fibrillation. That's why in the ambulance they have phoned us. Look, it's a primary PCI, the matter of teamwork. A lot of people working there. One people is going to intubate the patient having intubated. One patient is giving, one people is going to give him DC shot, and we have got just within a few minutes we could try to engage, and we found that the left anterior descending artery is subtotally occluded. Within a few minutes, just putting as a stent, and the patient remained alive and discharged in the next day. So look at the ECG came back to normal on the side of burn of the DC. The primary PCI is a matter of networking. It's not a matter of doing a simple procedure, rather than doing networking in the form of transportation, in the form of the education, and the form of the team working. Just apart from doing primary PCI, we could success in a lot of things. We did a lot of things in our center as a first center to be done in Kurdistan and Iraq. Now, what's very precious to me that now we have a Kurdistan Board for American Specialty. Now we have got about 16 students in fields. Every year 3 will be graduates. So imagine that after 5 years there will be another extra 15 cardiologists available in the city. So as you mentioned that we have started a program for TAVI, which is one of the important programs. And in spite of that, we did a lot of publication. This is my publication, a new technique for treatment of one of the difficult cases, which is left medicine, named Kurdistan technique, have been published 5 years ago. And this only we are not going to do to deal with the coronary artery. We are dealing with the carotid. This is for a patient, 69 years old man. He has got subtotal occlusion of the internal carotid artery. He has got an attack of TIAs just after putting a stent and like that, and now the patient is very good. So now we're not dealing only with the coronary artery, we are doing intervention for carotid, coronal, and only. And this example of doing TAVI, which is transcutaneous aortic valve implantation, which was the first time to be done in Iraq with this kind with this kind. And this article had been published five months ago in the European Heart Journal. Some of our colleagues mentioned that in our center, the Center become the center of excellence for providing service in cardiology, have been published in the European Heart Journal. So we have got a future plan. Just last slides. My conclusion that nothing is impossible, and every project can be implemented if will, inspiration, enthusiasm, and other things are available. Never give up. Try when you give it. Try to come back the next morning with the same inspiration, and you can do the job. In the third world that we are living in, there is no any system is established. So try to stick to the stakeholders. Chance will not come a lot. Try to exploit any. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aram. A truly rising star. I don't think we have time for questions, so probably